Everybody, welcome to a special edition of Take the Black, the only show on the internet where we blah, 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 blah. I am Dan Selcke of winteriscoming.net, here with Daniel Roman of winteriscoming.net as well. And we're here to talk about The Wheel of Time. Daniel, we've seen the
Yes.
finale of season 2. We've seen the entirety of season 2. And I thought this season of TV would merit its own separate discussion because not only has it been quite good, it seems to have been quite popular.
Yeah.
After a somewhat roughly received season 1, season 2 has come back like a phoenix from the ashes, like a prize fighter backed into a corner and come
Like a
punching its
dragon
way out.
reborn.
Like, oh God, that's the one. That's the
Yeah.
third thing. To impress people, entertained them, and seems to be on an upward swing. Before we get to the finale, I just want to say, are you surprised by that? Are you surprised that this season came back and seems to have pleased folk in a way that season 1 did not?
Um, I'm hesitant to say I'm surprised. I was always hopeful that this would happen because The Wheel of Time is a huge popular series with a really enduring fandom. Like, there's a reason that this story is so beloved. So, and knowing that, we have this climactic event in Falm, which is a really good part of the books. I always hoped it could. I feel like it has done it better than I dared hope, though. So I'm surprised in some ways, but not others. Does that make sense? That's my non-answer.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and I guess the next question is, does it deserve to be treated like it's made this amazing turnaround? And let's start with the finale. So was this finale, oh, I forgot the title already.
It was What Was Meant to Be, which is a
What
chapter
was
from the
meant
books.
to be? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Was this a worthy end to the season as you saw it? Is it a worthy episode to herald the show's ascension into the tier of respectable, hype-worthy television?
Hell yes. Yes. No question. Yes is the answer. I think this finale is. I'm going to make some sweeping statements because, hey, what fun is life if we're not allowed to make sweeping generalizations? I think when we, as the respectable fantasy and sci-fi historians that we are, looking back on 2023, I do not think it's an exaggeration to say that the Wheel of Time season 2 finale is going to be like the most important episode of fantasy TV of the year. I think it really did raise the bar for this show, and I'm hesitant to put that all on the finale because I think this season as a whole has been great, and I think especially like the back half of this season has really been excellent. But the finale is like, it's a moment. We are going to get into some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the finale, go watch it. What are you doing here? I think that final shot, or one of the final shots of Rand on the tower with all his friends with this giant fiery dragon, that's iconic. That will be iconic. I think that is like a memorable frame of fantasy TV that we got this year. So yeah, I think it deserves all the love it's getting. I think there's no question that this is well warranted. What about you, Dan? I'm just gushing over here. How did you feel about it?
Oh, gushing, and I'm glad. Gush away. I liked it. I don't think I'm gonna go quite as far as you. If I can be a bucket of ice cold water dumped in your head for a second.
Do it.
The best episode of fantasy TV, the Hallmark. No, it's still The Last of Us, where the two gay guys grow old together and die.
That's sci-fi, Dan.
Oh, stop it. It's the same thing. We're going to lump them all together.
I use specific words for a reason.
Genre. That's a whole other discussion. We will not get into that now. To be honest, when I saw the big dragon made of fire, my first thought was, I don't know, a bit over-designed. I think I would have preferred like just a standard sort of fiery banner in the sky. I don't know, we go that far. I like the finale a lot. I mean, you said that the back half of the season was better, and I think it definitely had more propulsion. I don't think it works without the first half. I think the finale, the strengths of it, does owe why it worked to what came before. I thought they did a good job of building.
Totally.
I liked it though. It was they were reaching for a new peak. This was their first big battle episode. I mean, really, because we can give them a mulligan on that season 1 finale where they wanted to do a battle but they couldn't because it was COVID times. I will always remember the bit in that season 1 finale where they were like, "There's an army of Trollocs at the door. Get every woman in the city you can channel, even a trickle, and get them at the gates." And then it was like the lady we already saw, Egwene and Nynaeve, who are strangers, and then 2 other people, which was great. Just like, why do you say call everyone? Just call like get Pam and Allison down here. So they clearly had some problems, but this one they could go all out, and it was all out. You had the White Cloak storming the place, fighting the Shan-Shan. You had Egwene up in a tower with the other Damane raining down fire on everybody.
That was cool.
You had Loyal and Perrin in the streets. Matt joins up. He's summoned some people, which, by the way, my unexpected favorite moment, I did not expect this to happen, was Matt blowing the horn and getting the heroes behind him. I kind of got a little teary because, like, yes, cried. You are a hero, Matt. You are. You do have goodness inside you.
I cried I cried such ugly tears the first time I saw that. Yeah, that's my favorite moment too.
And I didn't expect it to be, because really the horn has been sort of not talked about a whole lot, and it didn't even. I think the battle was good. I think they struggled with kind of scale a bit and like what relates to what, because like the horn thing, for instance, it's like apparently this horn has been the object of so much interest the whole season. He blows it, and like, 10 spirits come up and they fight like a group of Shan-Shan, but I don't see why Egwene couldn't have killed all of them just as easily. Like, I'm not sure it really warranted the search, or like the way that the White Cloak sort of like the gates open and just army of White Cloaks, and they all just pour into the city. Like, no one's watching the walls. The doors just open.
Yeah.
Also, the White Cloaks haven't really been a focus much this season, and something they play a big part. It wasn't perfect, and I know that you just wrote an article on how they had to restructure everything this season because of the Matt casting, and I wonder if that threw some stuff off. It all worked, and the photography was good. Like, I thought that Nynaeve had surprisingly little to do. Like,
yes,
after they kind of set this whole thing, we're gonna save Egwene. And I was looking forward to that. And then Nynaeve's big contribution was pushing the arrow through Elaine's leg and getting Elaine up there so she could heal somebody. It was good. It was climactic. It did bring everybody together. It wasn't perfect. And my 2 favorite moments that affected me the most were Matt blowing the horn. I did not expect. Donald Finn. I think he's great.
Yeah.
The whole season he's been great. I think he's better than Barney Harris, the last guy. I'm sure he was very good too. I think he's really good, and he sold that to me. And also, my other moment that really got to me emotionally was Hopper dying, the wolf, because I mean, animals dying is just always hard, and I knew it was coming, but just the big wolf eyes.
Yep. And then, they had an actual dog, which I do wonder how Pete is going to feel about this, because they've made such a hubbub about things like the boys using CGI animals. They used a real dog for that scene, and that dog. I was just working on a review for this episode and like commended the dog's acting, and it's like, what a time we live in. I'm like, that dog gave a great performance, but he did. I mean, as long as no animals were harmed from this episode, I guess.
Exactly. But that's another weird side tangent. Like, how badly do we not want special effects so badly that we're going to make animals fake suffer on TV? I don't know. It was affecting though, because I hate when animals die.
Yeah.
I said a lot. Why don't you say some things now?
Well, I think so what you're saying about it not being perfect, I think that's fair. I think we're kind of at the point with this where we live in such a time of genre television that I can recognize there are some flaws. I agree with you about Nynaeve. Sure. I do have thoughts about that, and I want to come back to it. But there were also like some weird like editing cuts, and I think this is something the Wheel of Time has always struggled with a little bit. Like Egwene defies Rena, and then it's, you've lost control of your Damane, and then it cuts away, and when it cuts back, Egwene's kneeling in the middle of the tower, and Rena's just shouting, "Submit to me," and like. Sure. There are just moments like that where like the white cloaked children like walking with the smoke things that made this mist that covered like the whole desert. So there are things like that where like it felt a little weird to me. That. But at a certain point, like this is such a high bar of fantasy television with so many special effects, so many characters. It's one of those times where I have to step back and be like, is it even worth getting upset about the smaller things that are wrong? And I feel like with this, it's just not. It's kind of like, getting mad about Tyrion still having a nose on Game of Thrones after Blackwater. Like those sorts of little changes or weird things. Yeah, I deserve the look you're giving me. My point is, I don't think they're major enough changes that they bothered me. Not changes, but issues that they bothered me at all. I do think that Nynaeve, I did feel like she got shafted a little bit. Nynaeve didn't really have a lot to do. Yeah, arrows. I didn't think of that. I think this episode in particular kind of went out of its way to let the book readers know that they were going to be changing things, and they wanted us to know that we knew they knew. If that makes sense. Bit. Yeah, they changed. So like Turok, that is a big moment in this battle. Rand duels Turok in the book. And it's this culmination where like Rand has a Blade Master sword that he got from his dad. He spends the entirety of the second book training, like on page. We see him train for months and months and months. And then he comes up against an actual Blade Master at the end of the book. And it's like, well, now he has to prove that he actually has earned the right to carry that sword. They didn't get to do that arc in the show. So stuff like Turok, they nodded to it. They even had the line from Turok, like, let's see what it takes on this side of the ocean to earn a heron-marked blade. So setting it up as if they were going to do it, and then they just had Rand blast him with the power. And that is...
It was definitely an Indiana Jones shoots the guy with the knife kind of moment. It was a wink. Yes. It was a little... sorry, no time thing. And I was looking forward for a second to seeing Turok fight with 3-foot long nails.
Yes. And there were a few things like that. So Nynaeve and Elaine going to rescue Egwene is another one. They do rescue Egwene in the books. Egwene doesn't fight in this battle like at all, from what I recall. She's never on the tower. She's never out fighting with the Shan-Chan. Nynaeve and Elaine just grab her as the battle's starting while she's still in the kennels, and they, she doesn't end up fighting for the Shan-Chan. So they basically, they kind of robbed Nynaeve of a few of her bigger moments in the back half of this season, giving them to other characters. They front loaded that by giving her a bigger accepted trial.
They did,
kind of balance it a little bit. How did you feel about the way that Egwene and Rena's stuff wrapped up? Because that's another pretty big change. Egwene murders Rena in the show. Nynaeve is there to say, don't murder a person in the books, and Rena lives.
I'm glad you brought that up, because honestly, not as satisfying as I was hoping. Like, I think most fans would agree with me that the Egwene gets enslaved and tortured by the Shan-Chan plotline, probably the most effective thing they did this season. I think that episode 6, I Felt Pity, is the best episode. I think it gave Madeline Madden, who plays Egwene, a chance to really show off what she can do. I said that right?
Yeah, totally.
It was just very compelling. Like, they really committed to showing the cultural differences, like the way in the Shan-Chan culture, they really do see women who can channel as like maybe especially intelligent dogs, like more or less. They really do treat them as less than human. And it was so disturbing and upsetting. Like Rena being like, nice to Nynaeve, was almost creepier than if she had just like treated her with absolute disrespect. And again, Madeline Madden got to show off that she is a good actor as Egwene. She got to rail and kind of push against this and resist. And it was, and I really wanted a confrontation. I remember reading the books. I wanted, like, I can't wait till she gets free and clocks this lady. And it happened, and I don't think they really sold it. Honestly, you know what I wanted? I wanted more physical. This is going to sound bad. I wanted more physical violence. I wanted Egwene to like stop, like forget the like putting your hands out like this and someone going like with like magic and shaky cam. I wanted Egwene to like take a rock and like smack her on the side of the head. That's what I wanted. And I wanted Rena to like like be like, but I was nice to you, like still not getting it. I thought maybe they went a little too high and mighty and grand with it, and kind of like epic fantasy with it. I thought it needed to be dirtier and grittier. And yeah, it was odd that they gave it all to Egwene and didn't let her, I don't know, and didn't had no role for her friends to play a part in it. So I liked the plot, but again, I did not expect Matt blowing the horn to be my favorite part of it. I did not expect Egwene getting free and getting her comeuppance against Rena to not make my list of top 5 moments.
Yeah, that is fair. I liked the resolution with Rena. I like the way the show did it. I like that Egwene is the one who, you know, realizes that if a Shan Shan Suldam can get collared, it means they can channel. So that is that's a revelation that other characters, from what I recall, get in the books. Nynaeve, Nynaeve and Elaine. I really like the arc that Egwene has had, and I think definitely. Even more than her getting that moment with Rena, her then standing up for Rand, getting in front of him, getting between him and Ishamael to buy Rand time.
Cool.
Yeah, I really liked all of that. I did expect Matt's blowing the horn to be one of my favorite moments of the episode, so that wasn't surprising to me. I was nervous about how well they would pull it off because the horn hasn't gotten a lot of setup. But yeah, I can understand. Again, this is one of those things where it's like I can understand the decisions they make. So like Rena, some slight book spoilers here. Rena just goes away after this. She comes back in like book 10 in a very minor way. And from what I recall, gets killed off in a pretty minor way. So it makes total sense that they would wrap up Rena's storyline with Egwene all in this season. It is a little interesting. It makes Egwene a bit darker that she gets out by herself and then just like murders Rena.
Yeah. I don't.
There are some specifics with the magic I found a little confusing there. Like if they both are wearing a collar and a bracelet, how could Egwene hurt Rena in that moment? But yeah, so generally I did like that, but I was sad to see other characters get relegated because of it.
I think I would have written it. I kind of agree with the books then, like, because this isn't Game of Thrones. It's not as gritty. Like, you do want your heroes to be a little more heroic. I think I probably would have stuck to Egwene, not like clocking her, great, but killing her, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then her defending the girl against Ishamael, that was neat. I mean, it was a bit contrived, obviously, like the 5 of them all meet up on the tower at the same time, and then Ishamael is there and they have this big thing. I was kind of looking forward to like the big fight in the sky thing from the Great Hunt. That didn't happen, but that's fine. I didn't need that. You know, there are those, again, like TV style contrivances. I get it. You want to bring all the characters together. I get it. It's fun. It was a good time. Or like the worst one was probably Moiraine and Lan, who we should talk, by the way, in context of the entire season.
I was just
on the beach, and like I didn't have a problem with Moiraine killing the ships. That was fun. It seemed a little far away. I don't know how their powers work, but whatever, it was fine. The thing that I thought was weird was like there was, I mean, I liked them getting back together. I liked their little bond moment. The thing I thought was goofy was like when she has to concentrate to do this, like Oh, it's time for some Shan warriors show up on the beach for no reason I don't know why they're here. So Lang has something to do and fight them. That was stupid, but it was fine. And then she made a fun little dragon, which I thought was overdesigned, but I thought it was cool. What do you think about the Moiraine land thing in terms of this episode and the entire season? Did it work? Because you had problems with this to start.
I did have a lot of problems with it. I like it a lot more from the finish line. I think that's kind of one of the big themes of this show and this season for me. You brought this up on our podcast this week. Did I regret or did I disagree with my early opinion nerves? Because I was really nervous
about this.
Yeah, I was nervous about some of the changes they made. And I think Moiraine and Lan were one of the biggest. And by the end of the season, I felt like they really vindicated a lot of that. So your point about the Shan Chan just showing up on the beach is fair. I didn't really think a lot about that. And there were some of those contrivances.
It's Matt like running out of the fight alley scene and being here.
Like,
it felt like in the script. was what it read to me.
But that aside, I loved the scene. I loved seeing Moiraine and Lan. So firstly, them getting their bond back was the first moment of the episode that made me emotional. I really liked that scene. Good. I think the one power animation in that scene was nice, like chef's kiss great. And then the scene where Moiraine is sinking the ships and Lan is fighting behind her, we needed that. So like they could have found some more convincing way maybe for the Shan Chan to be there, but I do think we needed to see them functioning as a Warder and Aes Sedai unit again for the only time of the season, where Lan is defending Moiraine while she's doing magic to defend the dragon. I loved some of her dialogue where Lan is like, what if Lanfear's manipulating you and those are just innocent people on the ships? And Moiraine is like, I would kill 1,000 innocent people if there's even a chance that it will save Rand's life. That's what this means. I loved that. Lan's fight scene was great. He caught an arrow out of the air.
Yeah, he did.
So I enjoyed that a lot. I know you said you felt that the fiery dragon was over-rendered. Personally, I really liked it.
It was fun. Yeah.
This is one of those. Do you think Lady Stoneheart is stupid, or do you think Lady Stoneheart is cool debates? Where it's like, how much fantasy do you want in your fantasy? I want all the fantasy. So fiery dragons, I'm here for it. And I can't recall, aside from House of the Dragon, a show that I've seen recently that did any sort of take on even though this isn't a real dragon, it still was, from a graphic perspective, they made a real ass dragon.
It was like an Asian dragon because they're the long kind, sort of like
which is on point.
Kind.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So in the books, there's an actual flag. So when Lanfear is like saying "raise the banner," which she doesn't say, Lanfear. We should talk about Lanfear too, because they gave her a much bigger arc this season. And I think what they did with the Forsaken in the show was a really, really smart decision.
They were definite hits. The Forsaken were hits. They were good.
Yeah. So in the books, Rand has an actual dragon flag that he carries around. So in terms of the banner being raised, it's like, go put up your actual damn flag. So I like that the show, it had a few things like that where it's like, we know that book readers are expecting something. We're going to give it a different variation of it. So in this case, bannered across the sky and fire doesn't mean he's fighting a Shamael in the literal sky and the banner gets raised. It means they're fighting on a tower, which is in the sky, and then a giant fiery dragon will come, and that's the dragon being proclaimed. It worked. That's good. One other thing that I hate to be the person who's like that annoying in the books person, but I know I always am.
In the books.
One other thing I did miss in this episode, and I feel like it was very much like you said about time and just how complex can we make this already very complex thing. Right. Ingtar, it is never revealed to be a dark friend in the show. So Ingtar is the Shienaran who stays behind to buy Perrin and everyone else time. He fights in the alley. Ingtar's turn is a really good moment of Falm in the books, where he basically it's him and Rand, and he reveals to Rand like he's a dark friend, but he has regrets.
I do
And
recall that.
his redemption is that he stays behind and fights in that alley so that Rand can go do heroic stuff. And it's really effective. It's a really effective moment. And I was
I
sad to lose it in
remember
the
that
show.
moment from the book. Like I don't remember everything from the books, but I remember it. So yeah, it that moment
Yeah.
stuck with me, and I was looking forward to.
And I think it's interesting to me because they did like Ingtar has been mysterious enough that I thought the twist would have worked, but I think they just maybe didn't want to overdo Dark Friend twist because they just did Barthanes in the last
Sure.
episode. So to not have it be like everyone's a Dark Friend, like they had two big ones, Leandrin and Barthanes this season. So I can understand it, but I was sad because it deprives Ingtar of, he's a minor character who only appears in this one part of the story, and that's his redemptive turn is what makes him memorable or at a powerful part of the story. And we did kind of lose that. And it's just a generic, I'll sacrifice myself so you guys can go on instead of, I've committed to a course of evil. There's a really great line that's like, do you believe that no one can ever walk in the darkness long enough that they can't come back to the light? There's some line like that that is like a heart-stopping line that is in that scene that I was really sad we didn't get. But I feel like it makes sense because he just wasn't
Yeah.
developed the same way. They had too much else. They had to get to Egwene and Rena, which is a brand new scene. So they
Oh
made
yeah.
choices.
Not only did Ingtar not get his betrayal moment, if you had asked me to give that character's name, I couldn't have done it. When my partner and I were watching this, that guy died, and they slowed it down like it's an important death. And we both went, no, that guy. Because like
Yeah.
they just didn't. Which brings up an interesting point about the season as a whole. So
Yeah.
that article is important that you wrote because I didn't realize this. That apparently when Barney Harris, the actor who played Matt, noped out of the show halfway through season one, they had to reorient things in the final two episodes, and it made them have to rewrite season two. Like they were apparently
Like
originally
entirely.
planning it
Yeah.
completely. Like apparently they were originally planning to send, Matt, Perrin, and Rand after the Horn together, like in the books, but they couldn't do that because the actor had to leave. They had to rewrite that. So now they all had separate adventures.
Yeah.
And that made me think like, man, if they were all together, they could have saved some time and like not had to cut away to everything, which would mean that you could spend more time doing other things like developing Ingtar, like doing other stuff.
Yeah.
But also, would they? Because when I think about things in season two, like things that got cut from the books, or like, those critiques we've heard that like, I like the show, but I'm confused at what's going on. Because at the end of the bottom line is they did cut a lot of stuff from the books, not just Ingtar, but like in the book they visit Loyal's steading and meet his
I miss
truish mother. I miss Loyal in general, although he got better at the end of the season.
Yeah.
They cut kind of several white tower things, like slowly learning this stuff. They cut quite a bit. They cut Rand falling into like the in-between parallel dimension world, meeting Selene.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they needed it, but
yeah, agree.
And part of me wants to say, like, well, because they had to cut all that, because they had to reorient things. But I forget, like, they added a ton that they didn't necessarily need to add. Like, all of Moiraine losing her power and Lan having a crisis is basically new. And while I did like the resolution, I think it was probably the weakest part of the season. I feel like it was a let's keep Rosamund Pike in front of the camera, which I understand. She's very, very good, but I don't know. I'm not sure they got enough mileage that I'd make it worth it. They added bits with, well, I look forward to hearing your take.
Sorry, they added bits.
But it's added. We can agree on that. It's added.
Yes.
They added stuff with Moiraine's sister, which I also enjoyed. Like, I like the stuff with Moiraine's sister. They added stuff with Leandrin. Leandrin had a huge role this season with her son and kind of getting into her psychology. And they cut all this stuff about Perrin and Matt's and journeys and the White Cloaks and Ingtar, all the stuff that is from the books. they could have kept that, but they chose to add other stuff instead. And I guess, was that correct? Like, should we have kept Leandrin more like she is in the books, as in like kind of a minor antagonist, instead of delving deep into her, and instead had Ingtard's big betrayal from the books? Should we have, maybe not had Moiraine lose her powers and instead have her just reduced in this season like she is in the books and visit Loyal studying instead as the books? Like, were the changes worth it?
Yeah, I think that is the big question, really. And I think the thing that fascinated me about this finale was they were very, all of the winks to book readers, like the Turok thing, made me feel like this was the episode where they were like, we know we're changing stuff. We're still going to make it good in our own way, but you're going to have to get okay with, like, we're not going to be able to do even things that we really liked from the books, like Turok or Ingtar.
But they could have done it, though. They chose not to.
Yes. Yeah. And I do think that's maybe truer for Ingtar than Turok. I don't think they could have done Turok the same way, because the whole reason that Turok lands is because you see Rand training with lessons he learned from Lan.
I had no problem with putting Turok.
So I do still think we might get Rand's Blade Master moment where he like shows that he has become a warrior of renown. Like, I think we'll see that at the end of season 3. There's another battle Rand has to have. I think they could work it in there because he's going to be traveling with Lan anyway. So I'm expecting them to train next season. The question of whether
looking forward to all the little names for, like, butterfly flies over the fence, water rushes under the willows. I just want 8,000 of those.
Yes.
Staple gun empties the canister. Okay, go ahead.
I think, for a lot of the season, I wondered exactly what you said. Like, were these changes worth it? I personally hate the trope that a lot of shows do, where a character is powerful and they need a reason to keep them around and keep it interesting, so they take away their power and have them struggle with that. I think especially both The Witcher and The Wheel of Time made this exact same decision for the exact same reason, which is they had a female lead who isn't really in the subsequent book, and they needed something for them to do. I did actually feel like they made Moiraine's plotline worth it, because it made the Barthanes Dark Friend reveal way better. He just kind of like gives Rand a letter from Padan Fain in the book and is like, by the way, I'm a Dark Friend. And then you find out later he got killed. Like, Barthanes is really like kind of a nothing character compared to what he's in the show, where like you feel that turn where it's like, oh, the really nice nephew is a Dark Friend. That's kind of messed up. It was cool. I also think, so with Moiraine losing her powers, one thing I really liked about that is that it let them start showing some of the nuances with the magic, like that women can't see weaves that men cast, because it's different halves of the one power. So the Aes Sedai can't see that Moiraine is shielded. Only men can see it. And it also starts to show that the Forsaken are not just like gods, because that's kind of a long game thing the books get into. Like, the Forsaken are these super powerful people from an ancient time. Is there any limit to their power? And then as the main characters get stronger and more established, you start to realize, oh, these are just people with like ancient knowledge that gives them an extreme advantage from a time when it was more common to be this powerful compared to the current age. And seeing that, like, oh, Ishamael put a weave on Moiraine was a nice way to start introducing these ideas. So I do think the show actually paid it off. And if you had asked me this like a month ago, I would have said I didn't think there was any way they could have. So they really won me over, I think, with some of their decisions, about, like, again, like setting the table for the long game. I think this show really pays a lot of attention to working in foreshadowing and little details that are going to be relevant for future seasons. And at this point, I'm kind of like, I trust it. I didn't at the start of this season. I was kind of like, I don't know.
You were concerned.
I did not. I genuinely
you had me concerned.
Well, you brought up all these
And then I
things
watched and I was like, what's he talking about?
well, it was just a totally different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this season, especially the first half of this season, is largely very different from the way the story happens in the books because those three friends are not off hunting the Horn of Valir together. And we did see the kind of a bad repercussion of that is that it really wasn't clear what the Horn of Valir did, like until this episode.
Yeah.
And even then, like it did feel a little like they shoehorned in that dialogue just to be like, viewers are going to need to know what this does before Matt blows it 2 scenes from now. So it is fascinating that Barney Harris thing that you brought up, which is from an interview that Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, did with Screen Rant. Yeah, he talked about how Barney Harris left near the end of season 1, and they had to change because of that. Matt never went to Faldera. The characters, they kind of had to commit to them being off in separate places, so they just leaned into it because they didn't have a choice. And I think when we see the Wheel of Time getting adapted and a lot of these choices being made, a lot of them come down to the logistics of making a TV show. Keeping actors having interesting things to do instead of, making them bit parts, which, like, to be honest, I don't hate that decision. I like that they're trying to give characters like Alana, which she's another one. If you had said they're going to give Alana more screen time and that is ultimately probably going to be a good thing, I would have scoffed. But Priyanka Bose is great. The actors who play her warders are great. And yeah, I don't know, Dan. I have just completely come around on this. I think this season was excellent.
I thought it was really good. The Moraine stuff, land stuff, I thought it was bad because the scenes were bad and boring. Like, I mean, you're talking about, I don't see, my favorite thing about the Moraine plot was when the reason it worked better than the Yennefer thing in The Witcher to me is because the Yennefer thing, like her entire story was about getting her magic back and it made her do dumb stuff. Moraine was doing things that I think she would have done anyway. She was still trying to help the dragon. Like, I don't see why her visiting her family and it being awkward and Barthanas turning would have been any different had she not had her powers. Like, I thought this were all really good. What we got, what I didn't like were the scenes with like her and Lan. She's being mean to him. The scenes where Lan is like kind of wide-eyed and Charlie Brown sad peeing against a tree, which I don't need to see again. It felt like wasted time.
Yeah.
Like I think they could have done, I don't think they needed it, but I like the resolution. But honestly, like Moiraine going to Cairhien, staying with her sister, it being awkward, slitting Lanfear's throat, trying to get away, killing a horse. Like, I don't see why any of this could have happened when she didn't have powers. I think they could have found a way around this and still had it work. But it all worked out more or less well. Let's talk about the Forsaken as we come down on I don't know how long this is going to go exactly, but as we continue, let's start Forsaken. Lanfear, Ishamael, and at the very end of season 2, Mogadine.
Yeah, Mogadine
was cool,
spoiler
right?
alert. I did
she
like
nice.
Mogadine.
How is it pronounced?
Mogadine.
What is the audiobooks say Mogadine?
I can't speak for the audiobooks. Does Rosamund Pike say Mogadine?
I thought Lanfear said Mogadine, but maybe I heard wrong.
Mogadine.
Ew, I don't like it. Okay, well, I'll just call her M. She was really cool. She doesn't
like Dan as a name, so here we are.
She's not real, dude. M. I liked the actor. I'm not sure who it was. I thought she was like nicely creepy at the very end of the stinger. I thought it was effective.
Yeah.
And it's cool that the very end opened up like, oh, you thought Ishamael and Lanfear were bad? Well, wait till season 3 where there are other people now out trying to do some stuff. That was cool. And Lanfear and Ishamael were great. They were both great. Good villains. They both had kind of, and again, I haven't read all the books. I know they kind of imported some of the motivations from later in the books into earlier. And the villains, they both seem distinct. They both seem dangerous. Like Ishamael has his whole, I don't want to be reincarnated anymore. I want to stop living. Let's break the wheel kind of thing, which is a nice super motivation for a villain to have. And then Lanfear is more the vampy seductress. I want to turn to the dark side, and I will wear outer space dominatrix outfits in the dream world to do it. They were both a lot of fun. Lanfear especially. Natasha O'Keeffe was given sort of a campy, vampy, strutting powerhouse of a role. She got to just kind of wear eyeshadow and roll her eyes and flick her wrist and blow things out. It was fun. It was a fun role. Yeah, she got to have.
She had a grand time playing that part.
Did, and it was fun to watch. Samael is a bit more contained and more serious, but he also Ferris pulled it off really well. They were just a lot of fun. They were really effective, and I'm not surprised because the Forsaken are really fun in the books. I mean, who doesn't want super powerful, thousands-year-old wicked channelers who have their own designs and are rebels and rogues and fight amongst each other and wear crazy outfits and are chaotic and evil for the fun of it? Like, it's a campy good time, and they leaned into it. I thought it really worked.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Forsaken are one of the examples where the show made a change and it's just exponentially better. Because at this point in the novels, like, we don't even know Selene is Lanfear until later. We kind of get the barest hint of that after Falm. She's like, by the way, my name's Lanfear, she says to Min. Min's someone we can mention. She kind of we're not going to talk too much about her because Forsaken, but Min got shafted a little bit this season too.
Sure.
But they made a very conscious decision to play up the personal side of the Forsaken. So instead of just these imposing evil people, like you said, Ishamael, we get this motivation of he just wants to stop being reincarnated. And
he's tired, you guys.
He's tired. Give the man a break. And that is something that comes in way later in the books. Lanfear is very self-serving. Like, that's a fun theme with the Forsaken, is they all have their own agendas and they're totally happy to screw each other over for those agendas, and none more so than her. And I like that this is another example of where I wish the show had a little more time, because I like that she was planning to basically chuck the rest of the Forsaken in the ocean, get rid of their seals. She talked to that trader. We find out that she's the one who sold him the piece of Quendiar that he showed to Moiraine. That's the thing. I wish we had more time to be like, why is this guy in the city? Because it just didn't explain that. But I think making the Forsaken like a central part of this season, instead of just like ominous things that are haunting Rand's dreams and that's it.
Totally worked.
Lanfear doesn't have like the reign of terror in the books that she does in this season. Like, it just doesn't happen. You kind of get to know more as she goes on of how she has this personality and is out for herself. So they really featured her in a bigger way. And I think that, the response speaks for itself, right? Like,
great
I haven't
decision.
seen a single person be like, oh, I wish we had less Lanfear. Everyone is all about it.
Going into season 3, we have some exciting, well-liked, fun to watch antagonists, and that's always good for a show.
Yeah, I did like them. I did not expect them to introduce Moghedien at the end of the season. So that was a thing that I particularly really liked. That got me so stoked, because, all of these Forsaken who they are including in the show, are going to have big major things they have to do. Moghedien has some stuff particular to Nynaeve in the books. So expect some juicy stuff from Moghedien in the series. She is played by Laia Costa, is the actor who plays Moghedien. And
she was creepy. I enjoyed her.
She was so creepy. Yeah, that softly in the shadows, like creeping with the little using weaves like spider webs. I really like the Forsaken. I think they're doing an excellent job, and it's kind of another one of those like, have faith in us guys type of thing, because they're making big sweeping changes, and I think it's going to make the whole a much stronger thing than if they really tried to just be sticklers sticking to what is in the books, especially because they're also modernizing this series in a way that something like Game of Thrones didn't need to be modernized, because George R. R. Martin was I don't know. He just, when he wrote them, he has just more of a critical eye for not sounding as old fashioned. I don't know how to put it. Like,
oh, I have theories about that, but we probably don't need to have time to get into them.
Yeah,
but I agree with you. Yeah, this Wheel of Time needs modernizing in a way that Songbirds and Fire really didn't. Maybe still doesn't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way the show is doing like LGBTQ plus IA characters. Like, well,
oh right, Moraine,
yeah, the Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time books are like, they're pretty straight. They really, like, there are queer characters
they're pretty
in them.
Sexless.
They're pretty sexless. They're pretty straight and pretty sexless. So like, you have things like Moiraine and Siwan's relationship in the books.
Yeah, that's an improvement.
But like, it's like a throwaway line being like, they were pillow friends. Like, you don't really ever see what their relationship looked like. And the show made a very smart decision to bring that out more. So I think you can't have both, right? You can't be like, I wish they would only do what's in the books, but also it's, you know, if you like all these things they're adding, like having more queer characters, having the Forsaken be these huge powerhouses early on in the story, you know, they have to make these decisions. And after seeing season 2, I really think it's working for them.
Yeah, I can like some changes and not like others, and I will. But overall, yes, I agree with you. They've done a good job, especially after learning that they had to rewrite the entire thing. They really pulled it together very nicely. I'm excited for season 3. I'm excited that everyone else is so excited about season 2. This show could go, if they do the entire Wheel of Time story, which is 14 books long. I think, I'm not if that includes the prequel or not. And they do it at this level, that'll be a huge accomplishment. I like the show a lot. Again, it's you can just feel the love, like, for the campiness, the vampiness, just the way he wants to kind of make these big most moments hit. You can feel it.
Yeah.
I frankly worry about Rafe Judkins working on the God of War show. Like, this Wheel of Time seems like a full-time job to me. Like, this is big enough to take up all of your time. So I hope it doesn't crash and burn later on. But for right now, they definitely have my interest and attention.
Yeah, totally. They have mine as well. I think that's fair about, you know, wondering about God of War. He's addressed this and said, you know, I always work on multiple things. That didn't change just because I'm now doing Wheel of Time, which is fair. He did like Uncharted too, and all these different things.
Uncharted?
Yeah. The Uncharted movie
with Tom Holland?
Yeah, he wrote that. Yeah.
Well, don't brag about that.
It wasn't bad. Did you see it?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Putting you on the spot. Yeah, no, it wasn't bad.
I've been called out.
But yeah, I think the Wheel of Time is here to stay. I think if Amazon is smart, they will maybe realize what they have here and really put their
market it behind
it. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about not seeing a lot of ads for it. I can't really speak to that. I think the PR people they have working on the show are doing excellent work. But I think that there is kind of this feeling that Amazon expects the Lord of the Rings of Power, to be their bigger hit. And I think that's folly. So I hope that they realize what they have with the Wheel of Time, especially like they can sell more books, man. Like, Amazon's a bookseller too.
That's very true. That's a good point.
15 of these books, like, put out. Yeah, there's a lot of cross marketing, cross pollination potential here. I really hope they lean into it, because season 3 is already filming. It's adapting one of the probably more beloved books in the series, The Shadow Rising, which is generally considered one of the better ones. So yeah, I think they've got a hit on their hands. I do think this show is easily one of, if not the, you know, most important or biggest fantasy shows since Thrones was on the air. So
I agree. Bring it.
At it.
I'm looking forward to more. Any final thoughts you have before we sign off, Dan?
I'm sure that I'll think of one as soon as we sign off.
Sure. Naturally.
So I'll just say, if you have been, you know, you guys watching, if you've been enjoying the Wheel of Time, huzzah, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for all the people who are just now discovering this story, as well as for the people who have loved it for years and are now seeing things like Falm on screen, which is, that's like up there with Ned Stark's execution for me, where I read those years ago and I was like, I can't, I never expected to actually see it in a television show. So it's pretty damn cool that we're at this juncture where we're now getting into these sorts of big events from the Wheel of Time. You have any final thoughts, Dan?
Mogadine forever. That's about it. Everybody, thanks for watching. This has been our breakdown of Wisdom 2 Season 2 and the finale. Usually we have a live show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on our Facebook and YouTube page. You're free to check out. Also, if you enjoyed what we said, please give us a like, a subscribe, a comment. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you. We'll be back with more commentary, more insight about all things fantasy and sci-fi, both, because they're very, very different.
Yes.
TV, movies, so on.
Nice.
So thanks for watching. Keep watching, and the wheel of time in the sky keeps turning. Bye.
Nice. Take care, all.